Welcome back to my channel where we look at things that may or may not be true. Today's video is going to be about something that I heard from my laptop speaker while it was off. If you like this kind of content, stay tuned for more. Alright, so let's begin. The story begins with me being a student who was studying for exams. I lived in a pretty nice dormitory. It wasn't anything fancy or anything, but I had my own room, and it was decently sized. I had a bed, a dresser, a desk, a chair, and a laptop. I also had an external speaker that I would use to listen to music when I was working or just chilling out. It was nothing crazy, just your typical white Bluetooth speaker. So one night I was just sitting there quietly studying, and I decided I wanted to listen to some lo-fi beats to help me focus. So I put on my favorite album, The Village by Nujabes, and started to study. I played the music on my laptop speakers and then set my laptop down on my desk and went back to studying my notes. After a few minutes of doing this, I started to hear what sounded like a growl coming from my laptop. I looked over at my laptop, but everything seemed fine. I thought maybe I was just hearing things, since I had been studying for hours and probably hadn't gotten enough sleep. So I turned the volume up on my speaker and tried to focus on my notes again. However, after a few minutes, I heard it again. This time it sounded louder and more clear. I paused the music and listened intently. All that could be heard was a low growl. This continued on for about 10 seconds before it stopped.
Ow!
I didn't know what to do. I looked around the room to see if anything could have caused the noise, but there was nothing there. I tried turning my laptop off and unplugging it from the wall, but the growling just kept happening. At this point, I was extremely scared. I threw my blanket over my head and just laid there until morning. When morning came, I called my friend to come over and take a look at my laptop. He said that he would come over later in the day, but I told him that I couldn't wait and that I needed someone there with me. He ended up coming over right away, and when he did, he was very skeptical about the whole situation. When he got over my place, he told me to turn the laptop on and play the song that I was playing when the growling occurred. I did, and sure enough, the growling started right up again. My friend was shocked and didn't know what to say. We tried calling an IT specialist, but they were all booked and weren't available for a few days. My friend told me that he would stay with me until the IT guy could come and take a look at the laptop, and so he did. For the next couple of days, neither of us slept much. Every time one of us would fall asleep, the other would wake up and start hearing the growling. It was driving us insane. Finally, the day came when the IT specialist was able to take a look at the laptop. My friend and I were so relieved. Maybe finally now we could get some sleep. The IT guy hooked up the laptop to his machine and ran diagnostics. Strange, he said. I can't seem to find anything wrong. He then proceeded to replace my hard drive and reinstall Windows. Still nothing. He even took apart the laptop and cleaned out the dust. There, he said with a big smile, I'm sure this will fix your problem. And it did. For a few days, there was silence and no growling, but then it started up again. This time it sounded different. It didn't sound like it was coming from the laptop itself, but rather from outside of it. My friend and I looked under the laptop and saw that there were wires coming from underneath the desk and connecting to the laptop. We unplugged them, and the growling stopped. See, I said to my friend, I told you it was coming from outside the laptop. He didn't reply, but just looked at the wires intently. We plugged the wires back in, and the growling started up again. We tried unplugging each wire individually, but the growling continued. We even cut some of the wires, but still it wouldn't stop. At this point, we were both too scared to continue our investigation. My friend ended up leaving, and I was left alone in that room with the growling. Now, I didn't want to call another IT specialist because I knew that whatever was causing the noise was still there in the wires, and I didn't want them getting hurt, so I decided to investigate myself. I searched online and found that the wires looked like they were from an old camcorder. I figured that whoever had installed these wires had done so thinking that they would be able to hook up their camcorder to my laptop and record what was on the screen. So I figured that if I played the same album on my laptop, maybe I would be able to hear the growling on the camcorder. If I did, then I could find where the camcorder was and hopefully destroy whatever was inside of it. So I played the album and waited. Sure enough, the growling could be heard on the camcorder. I followed the wires from the camcorder into the wall and then into the room next door. I knocked on the wall and told the people next door to turn off their speaker. They said that they didn't have any speaker on, and that they would check to see if there was something wrong with theirs. A little while later, they came back and told me that there was nothing wrong with their equipment. So I went back to my room and continued the investigation. This time I followed the wires through the ceiling into the attic. In the attic, I found a small hole with the wires sticking out of it. I stuck my arm through the hole and felt around. There was a small box with a power button on it. I pressed the button, and the growling stopped. I reached into the box and pulled out a small device that looked like a microphone. I ripped the wires off and left the box in the attic. I went back to my room and slept for the first time in days. The next morning, I went back up to the attic and looked for the box. I couldn't find it anywhere. I ended up ripping out the section of ceiling that the hole was in, but still, there was no sign of the box. I gave up and went back down to my room. I started to hear the growling again. I went back up to the attic, but this time it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I ran out of the attic and down the stairs. As I was running, I heard the loudest growl yet. I didn't know what to do. I ended up barricading myself in my room for the rest of the day. The next morning, I woke up and the growling was gone. I haven't heard it to this day. But sometimes late at night, when the moon is full, I swear I can hear it calling my name. If you like this story, please leave a like. If you want to hear more stories like this, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.